Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome to day one of the Prague Quadrennial Symposium for Performing Exhibitions and Curating Scenographies. This is my flash talk, The Page as Stage, Performance Through Digital Scenographic Storytelling or Archiving Performance. Let me tell you first a little bit about this talk. This flash talk examines how digital publications can operate as scenographic spaces, transforming the online space into a site of performance, curation, and spatial dramaturgy. I am using Skene, which is a global performing arts platform, as a case study. And through this, I will explore how interviews, reviews, and community narratives function not just as written artifacts, but as performative encounters. Encounters that showcase artists, their processes, and their environments in which the works exist. First, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Josafath Reynoso. I am a scenographer. I'm an educator. I'm an editor based in the United States. I am the head of the Scenic Design Graduate Program here at UT Austin in Texas in the United States. But I'm also an immigrant, which is central to my understanding of international and scenographic collaboration. It's also central to my understanding of organizing communities, global communities, but also virtual communities. I'm also the founder and chief editor of Skene, which is a global performing arts platform focused on design, storytelling, and digital scenographic curation. And my work spans theater, opera, immersive installation, and international cultural networks. Let's start at the very beginning. I want us to talk about the stage. Let's think about the stage as a relational space, as a space of encounter, a space where audiences and performers come together. We in the practice, right, we that we are in the field of scenography, we know that the stage is not always a theatrical space, right? We know that we can have non-theatrical spaces. We know we can have site specifics. We know we can have urban spaces, street performance. It can happen at a toilet stall. It can happen at a subway station. So this space can take on many different shapes. And because of that, I want to ask the question of, where does performance take place today? The digital space, as I see it, is no longer simply a container for documentation. It functions now as a stage on its own right, a space where presence, action, and encounter are continuously activated. Here, artists and audiences, they coexist without a physical proximity. They engage across time zones and platforms and context, and they form this shared experiences that develop throughout time. This results in performance then becoming this sort of like continuous, sustained through circulation, through interaction, and through constant activation of the content. The stage is no longer just a singular location. It is distributed, it is decentralized, it is networked, and it's always in motion. Part of the largest inspiration that I got from this for this piece, for this talk, but also for this platform, is my experience in 2018 at LCT Directors Lab. Lincoln Center Directors Lab is a very interesting project. It's an international forum, not unlike this one, not unlike the Symposium, that brings 70 directors from around the world. It separates them in groups, and each group gets a play. In the group that I had the opportunity to be in, I was the scenic designer assigned. You can see me right there in this very blurry picture. 10 directors were giving the same play. And then through a week, they were asked to tackle this play in the way that they would traditionally do it at home. That means that throughout that week, we got to see 10 very different approaches of how to approach a text. Some people went straight for space exploration. Some people were more interested in exploring the body. Some people sat down and did a lot of table work and text analysis. I had the opportunity of being the scenic designer assigned to this project, and because of that, I got the opportunity to design the same play 10 times in 10 days. By the end of the lab, by the end of the experiment, I had 10 very different takes on the exact same show. And I think that was a very interesting experience for me to see how directors brought their cultural knowledge, their understanding of theater, their understanding of practice, their understanding of tradition, and how that materialized into this final pieces. This is what I think of when I'm thinking of scenographic thinking. Scenographic thinking is in this expanded stage becomes essential. Scenography, as we know it, we are in the area of creating scenography, that is not just the design of the space; it's the organization of relationships. It's the relationships between bodies and time and images and meaning. It is inherently collective. Theater, dance, opera, performance—they all rely on collaboration across disciplines. One of my favorite things about theater is the fact that the end product is always bigger than the sum of its parts. It doesn't matter just how good my scenic design is, or how good the actors are, or how good the director is. When those elements come together, the end product is just so much stronger than all the individual elements. And it's not just the fact that we're layering in things that are very good together. Through this collaboration, through this magic that happens when all the elements come together, what comes out is always going to be a lot larger, a lot more important, a lot more magical than anything that I could have conjured on my own. That means that meaning does not emerge from a single author, right? But through the interaction of many contributors that are working towards a shared objective. This creates temporary communities that are structured around intention and practice. We all seen that in rehearsal rooms, in tech rehearsals, in co-working spaces where we're designing a project. And in the digital context, this way of thinking actually persists. It becomes a method for structuring encounters, connecting people, and shaping how experiences unfold across distances. This takes me now into the idea of this living archive. In the performing arts, design and technical practices are often reduced to our final images. They're flattened into documentation that removes the process and labor and context. When I finished Lincoln Center Director's Lab, what I had were 10 very different images, 10 very different pictures. But the thing that you could not get from those pictures was the labor that went into it, the collaboration that went into it, the director's values, the director's appreciation for theater, the director's traditions when approaching a text. A living archive resists this. A living archive expands beyond the final image and includes decision-making, evolution, and authorship. It actually positions designers and artisans not as secondary contributors, but as knowledge producers. And most importantly, it remains active. And it resists the idea of it becoming a resource that sits in a bookshelf somewhere that can be checked. And instead, it becomes a constant motivator for other artists to evolve and transform their practice, while in turn, they are transforming the practice that has just happened. Material is not just stored and forgotten, it is revisited, it is recontextualized, and it's connected across time, continuously generating new meaning. At the center of all this, of course, is the people. Scenographic practice is inseparable from the individuals that shape it, right? Designers, technicians, and makers, we carry histories, we carry cultural context and lived experience into our work. Documenting that allows us to understand performance not only as an outcome, but as an extension of identity, collaboration, and perspective. It's very often that we get to see our pictures in portfolios or in reviews, but there's a lot of the designer that you don't get to see from that one picture. So in a space where we can dig deeper and go into the designer's values and their visions and what makes them tick, that actually adds a whole nother layer to the work that you actually get to see in just the pictures. My favorite part is perhaps the fact that we are creating new traditions. Traditions, as this practice circulates, something else begins to happen. Traditions are no longer fixed. They evolve. Artists move across borders and disciplines and contexts, and they carry knowledge that is adapted and reinterpreted into new environments. The digital space actually accelerates this change. Practices travel further, faster, and enter into dialogue with other forms of making. So if I know that I approach rehearsal in a particular way, but I get to see someone rehearsing in an online space, I can incorporate some of that into my own practice and create a new tradition. And that new tradition, and in turn, affects other people that get to witness it and incorporate it into their own. And so we enter into this living archive, into this living cycle where everybody's tradition just keeps on shifting and creating new traditions that are both rooted and fluid. That is, I mean, there's still a space for the ancient, of course. There's still a space for the traditional way of doing things, the traditional way of tradition. But at the same time, it also allows for the flexibility and the plasticity of these traditions evolving. By documenting and disseminating these practices, we're actually contributing to a living memory of performance, one that is collectively authored and that is constantly redefined. What comes out of this whole thing is what I call a stage with no walls, right? The idea of stage not as a fixed site, but as a shared space where practice, people, and memory converge. In this context, platforms like Skene operate as a bridge. They connect geographies and disciplines and communities. They translate scenographic thinking into a digital environment that is active and relational and that is continuously unfolding. And by fostering these new traditions, foregrounding people and preserving processes as a living archive, this approach actually creates a space for encounters, a stage with no walls, right? As I was saying, where scenography continues to exist as a collective and an evolving practice. Thank you. Just to finish, I want to leave some illustrations and sources for all of you. Thank you very much for your time.